you, Mark. We're on?
Yep.
Good evening, and welcome to the Cleveland Community Police Commission's Outreach Committee meeting. This is Monday. It is Monday, August 21st, 2023. We are at the CPC offices on Perkins Avenue, and welcome. I'm going to call our meeting to order and start the roll call. Commissioner Kyle Earley is not here as of yet. Alana Garrett-Ferguson is not here as of yet. Commissioner Cait Kennedy.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Gregory Reaves.
Present.
Okay, thank you. And I, Sharena, Zayed, I am present. So we're going to go forward with we're going to open up for any public comment. Maybe if anyone wants to, add anything, comment on anything that's on the agenda, anything from the last outreach meeting. If you want to say anything, now is the time. Okay. How about since no one came up, maybe we can push it back a little bit towards the end. Okay. And I just got an email from Alana. I think she wants to call in. Is there a number we can send?
She knows the number.
What's the number?
I'll
You're going to email it to me? Okay.
resend it to her.
Okay. Right. I'm going to go on to the first item on the agenda is the CPC Annual Survey and Community Police Interaction Work Group Update from Commissioner Cait Kennedy.
Good evening, everyone. Commissioner Garrett-Ferguson and I are on a work group that is drafting the next iteration of the survey. I have a full audit of the survey written in my notebook here. I asked Ryan to upload some Word documents into the survey folder, which he did. Thank you, Ryan. So I wanted to take your temperature, Chair, in regards to how you want us to go about editing the questions. Do you want to see the original document with all of my comments and suggested edits? Do you want to see a new version to react to? So I just wanted to know kind of what the group wanted to react to.
Okay. So have you begun looking over that, looking at the questions?
Oh yes, I've done that. I've done a full audit of the survey, and then I asked for the uploaded Word documents so I could go. So I did this handwritten, so I could go into the Word document and then comment on each question as an option, or I could send you a new version of the document.
Well, I think that would be great, but also I think we need to figure out before we begin editing too much, we need to just maybe figure out what information did we get in the last surveys, that information that we can use.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the usable information that we got from the last survey?
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the information that the other committees what do they need from us that
Mm-hmm.
they don't have, or what maybe they can give us input of what they need. So as we're creating this,
Mm-hmm.
possibly creating this new survey,
Mm-hmm.
we can know what information we need to gather and include. I think I was just discussing maybe even, so we have the framework, we do have to go over this and kind of add things to this and tweak this, but I do think that overall we need to address take some action steps to just address who are the people we're going to reach out to. Just kind of structure the process of figuring out what information we need to get first, kind of taking a step back.
So can I make a suggestion? So what I would like to do then is to use the most recent iteration of the survey, so the 2021 version. I like to add my feedback into it, and then send it around to committee chairs, send it to you. Hey, Alana. Hi. send it to you, and so we could sort of build upon that, without, like, I guess, quote unquote, deleting or changing anything radical from the prior iteration of the survey. And then as to, is there a way that you want Alana and I to memorialize, like, who to reach out to beyond committee chairs in terms of writing the survey, in terms of authoring the survey?
Okay, so I was speaking with a few members of the community and Greg about maybe forming another work group whose goal is just to push forward the framework and kind of have discussions around what's needed to push each item on the framework forward. So, because I've been talking about, like, who are the community members that need to be at the table when this is being done? Who are the people you guys, and I think we don't have that information yet. So I think we need to, like, figure out a way to get that information to support you to push this forward. So one community member said we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I think we need to, figure out what are we looking for. Like you said, you're asking these questions. So I think the work group needs to be established for that.
Yeah, sure.
To kind of like gather that, figure out what are we doing, what is the purpose for this, what information are we trying to gather, who we need to reach out to, who are the stakeholders, what's going on, and in that way we'll have like a plan of how to go forward to get that stuff. Does that make sense?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm thinking like maybe a framework discussion work group to just help with discussing how to support each item on the framework, and we can work side by side with you guys to get that information to you. So that might be like a later conversation.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Because there's, in terms of like drafting and creating the survey itself, as I was looking at it, I wanted to balance like continuing to carry some of the information forward into another year to be able to measure progress over time. But there are some things that need to be changed to increase reliability. And so it's not going to be an apples to apples thing if we do that. So I just kind of like want to like give that as a heads up. And so, and then of course also adding, the tough thing about that, just as another heads up, is going to be if we don't delete a lot and then add a lot, the survey's going to be way too long. The survey's already too long. So we also need to have a difficult conversation on what to take away, what to add. So just as a heads up on that.
To the chair, may I just ask a question? Is this one on? Yeah. So, Jason, I know you were around before when we did the last one. Ryan, you were around. I was just wondering, was there a debriefing session after the last one to say what you thought worked well, what you thought did not work well, or there are some things that automatically need to be, deleted this time out before you even start adding? Especially if you did a debriefing before and you saw some, because sometimes we think of things, but then when we start to implement them, we see that maybe they weren't the best choices that we made. So I was just wondering that either you have any comments about the last survey in terms of things we need to do differently this time around.
To the chair, we do reports that talk about the data, and then internally, we've had discussions. We haven't produced any reports that say what we want to do differently, but we've had discussions. So the survey has changed each time. For instance, the first time we did our survey, and we're for the community's knowledge, we're also looking at how do we carry forward the monitoring team's required survey that they have not produced, right? And theirs is huge unto itself. And then we had a different survey than they did. So this project's talking about the best of both worlds, right? Because it doesn't look like the monitor is committing time, energy, or money to do another survey in the future. So they're depending on us to be the people who learn how to measure efficacy of the consent decree. So I don't want that to be lost, right? That part of this is we need to know at the street level, right, the people who are affected by policing services, is there a difference now
Yes.
in 2023 than there was in 2015 when this started, right? You need a metric for measuring that. So we have discussed that. Our survey tried to set up a metric. It's okay if we change it because, things can improve. But one example I'll give is the first year we did it, we didn't anticipate that police would massively attempt to put their own data into our system, and we didn't have a way to separate police from civilian data in the first go round, right? And then the second year we anticipated that, so we did a track split for police, but they weren't interested in taking it the second year. So we talk about things like that. We also did a mailer to improve response rate the second year, which we didn't do the first year. And due to the election cycle, our mailer was lost in a whole host of mayoral stuff and political campaigns and all this stuff. So there's those types of questions are talked about in debriefing. We've never debriefed the questions themselves or considered revisiting them since this last one. So this will be the first time we do that.
So my audit for the survey and my first go around focused on like survey reliability factors, like implementing a Likert scale in terms of the responses, which is like the most reliable way to rank survey responses, question numbers, adding detail to adding examples to a lot of the questions, like did the police violate your civil rights or civil liberties? Well, we got to define that if we're going to ask the question, those sorts of things, right? So that I could go on and on and on. So the other thing I want to mention, though, that if we're attempting to measure the community's perception of the police since 2015, has any other survey happened? Because I have the copy of the 2020 and the 21 survey results. Has a survey happened before 2020?
To the chair, yes, that was the monitoring team surveys. And even their survey wasn't consistent. So we did critique that in our accountability report,
Right.
saying there is no consistent metric. So let's look at just one example, trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in the preamble of the consent decree, right? And it's mentioned all the time. Everybody is building towards increasing trust,
Right.
but there is no metric for trust. There's never been that question wasn't asked in a simultaneous way, right? So those are the types of things where if we looked at what the monitoring team tried to do and then establish the standard going forward, you're right, we can't retroactive measure a change to 2015 because there was not the same question asked consistently year to year, right? But we can ask, and the other thing I don't want to be confused is hard data versus perception, because the other thing we tried to measure is perception, right? So you can ask the question, were your rights violated? But we were also interested in saying, do you feel like your rights were violated, right? Because a community member doesn't need to know specifically what the legal standard is of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we need to know, do you feel like there was bias against you, right?
Mm-hmm.
The feeling part is what we were trying to emphasize,
Mm-hmm.
not if they had hard evidence that there was,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you don't change the feeling, you
Mhm.
aren't achieving the goals of the consent decree
Right.
overall, right? So that was one of the things that we talked about in depth in the creation of our iteration of it, is it's not just hard evidence where your rights violated.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, do you feel like you had that experience that they were?
Right.
Because that's what matters to people. That's what they remember.
Right. No, that all totally makes sense. I just also want to be clear that it's going to be really difficult to measure this change over time because we haven't asked the same questions, and 2015 is quite a long time ago at this point. So I just want us to have some realistic expectations about what that reliability is going to look like. But we can definitely do a better job at asking the questions that will help clarify the intentions of the consent decree, also continuing to measure some of the really important measurements that the CPC survey has measured in the past.
and so, yeah, we just determine what information we need to acquire from people. That way it can effectively contribute to whatever goals we're trying to achieve. So, yeah. So I just think that we need to have like just step back a little bit and just have further discussions on how to set everything up for that. So, okay. Alana, do you have anything to?
Yeah, I had a question because I know we had discussed before about a database system, and I think that will help kind of what you're probably about to go into, Sharena, around making sure we're getting the people, because I think part of the issue when I look at those old survey results is it just doesn't capture enough. It's not a good representation of the community itself. And so I know we've talked about it before, but I think us actually having an actual database system that everybody in the city is already a part of and being able to tap into that will give us a broader reach to even reach people to make sure we have enough folks who are taking that survey and getting the information that we need.
I agree, and I also think that even like the method of gathering the information. So maybe for some it's a survey, but some it's a focus group or something to that nature. So we also need to explore different methods to access the information depending on what area or pocket of the community we're trying to target.
So if we're trying to, oh my God, I'm sorry, y'all, I can talk about surveys forever. But so if you're trying to get some of that like quantitative data, like Jason was referring to, like how many people felt that their civil liberties are being violated, like a web, like a mixed method of like a web, phone, and some written surveys would be probably the best way. Most reliable way to do that. But if you're trying to really capture people's stories, right, and some longer responses, a focus group is a really good way to do that. So the focus group though sort of like opens up another can of worms, because that's going to get really different information. So it would have to be like a plus, right? So like we're doing the community survey plus focus groups, which I'm totally down for that, but it's just going to take additional time and resources to do that well. So just want to offer that.
We'll just explore
Yeah.
what that looks like. Does anyone have anything else to add regarding the survey?
To the chair, I would just mention one other point that's important is you're looking for people with real experience and contact with the police in a set period of time, right? So that was the other thing we have to, so we're going to hit a lot of people. Some people might have to exit the survey because they haven't had any personal contact with the police. So we're not looking at feelings like in general, because you know the police are there and you feel like if they stopped you, this might happen to you.
Right.
We're looking for, the first question is, have you had an experience with the police? How frequently do you have experiences with police over the last year? You know, and then what was the context of that stop? You know, was it a field investigation? Was it are you a business owner in the community and you talk to the police frequently? Like we're trying to capture people who interact with the police, you know, or at least have had one interaction with the police. So that's even harder because we can cast a net. But then in that net, we're going to lose a lot of things because they didn't have that happen. And we don't want a story from a friend. We want their real experiences. So,
Chair, though, yes.
I just want to add, like, I think we should push back on that a little bit when we think of community protection and a greater like goal of safety. But I don't think we can call and describe or diminish someone's lived experience just because, in our opinion, they did not have it from a first-hand experience as far as if they were stopped by police. I think it's kind of, especially in a community that's so over-policed with so many different police units, that we have to make sure that we're also giving credence to what people's experiences are and not defining it for them by saying it doesn't matter because you weren't the person stopped, but it was actually your friend that was stopped when you also live in the same community. So I think we also have to make sure that like we're capturing the overall sense of everybody, because everyone lives in this community and everyone has had different experiences, but I don't think we should diminish anyone's lived experiences.
To share, the so there are many different directions to go, right? There's to cast a wide net to see like wide perception, right? There's also an option to target like certain areas that we know have more police interaction if we want to focus on that, right? So there's ways to do both of those things in a way that is respectful of resources and time and all that.
So we're gonna move forward to the CPC staff community engagement strategy discussion. So that was that engagement outline plan. I do want to acknowledge that there was an issue with that link. So some committee members were not able to view that. I know I just sent it to Alana like maybe 10 minutes ago. So Alana, would you be ready to move forward with commenting on that, or do you want to push that back? Would you be ready to go forward with that, Cait?
Yeah.
Sorry, if you come back to me, just give me 5 minutes.
Okay.
I'll be ready.
Okay. So, as said before, I reviewed this, I went over this. I have began working on like restructuring, like reorganizing this a bit. It does have a lot of gaps right now. I don't want to focus on like the gaps or the details. I just want to kind of brainstorm a little bit without going like deep into the details on the issues with it or the gaps. Just to, because that's not really the issue. I think the issue is just us getting on the same page of what we think a plan looks like, or what, you know.
Yeah, I do.
Like what are our goals? What, you know, do we want to accomplish? We have to just create a rationale for our work, you know, and where we want to go. And we can constantly like, you know, continue to add to this as we move forward. So I'll open the discussion up.
I can take up some.
Okay.
I can take up the next couple minutes. So I won't like go through my like specific line by line feedback, but I would say overall, I really wanted, in this plan, I would really like to see a detailed plan on going out to, right? Like going out to specific places at specific times, connecting with certain communities, right? So like, these are the communities we're prioritizing. This is the way we're going to reach them, like through these specific meetings, times, right? Like I want to see like a 12-month calendar of like, I want to see, me personally, I want to see all of it, right? Like all the events that are going to be prioritized in January, all of the events that are going to be prioritized in February, and on, right? And those events are prioritized because this is a specific community that we want to intentionally reach out to. And I think that is, Sharena, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think that was sort of the spirit of what I was trying to get into my feedback. So a lot of what was in the plan was just very general, and I want to see like really like a specific calendar, which I realize is going to be probably pretty painstaking to make, because these are potentially hundreds of events, right? But that's what I think needs to be done to create the type of plan that we should have.
As for me, I do think that this is a good starting point for us to keep going, but even at the very beginning where it says like the purpose of the Cleveland Community Police Commission is to bring community voices into the process of police reform. And I just want, you know, I feel like we needed to even establish that, figure out what each commissioner believes their purpose or their place is in that, and what our role is. Like, you know, are we a tool for the community? Or, you know, I personally believe that, you know, we are a bridge between the police and the community to come together to create, you know, the change that we want to see. So I think we need to establish like those, like just the objectives and what we are in this process first.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the numbers I mean, I agree the outreach plan needs to be detailed, like more detailed, but I think that I really would like to know like where some of the numbers came from, and also we need to discuss the target audience that was listed here.
Mhm.
You know,
For sure.
yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, so I don't know. Gregory, did you get that?
Whenever you guys ready, I can jump in too.
Sure.
I think like first looking at it, I don't think like under the outreach plan, like the objectives and the goals are not, they're not defined at all. Like I would like to see like more SMART goals. Like I don't understand increase awareness by 30% among untapped populations is not a SMART goal. Like it's not specific or defined in any way. And then I'm also kind of confused of like why there's so much conversation around a recognizable brand, seen as like that has nothing to do with anything in the consent decree. And then just like all of these components under like building the police reform, prevention, and grant making and restorative justice programming, there's like no clearly defined definitions or anything up under there. And so I think agreeing with Cait, like I think it needs to be way more detailed. And I also think it needs to be a lot more focused and tailored to what our goals are as far as the stuff that's in the consent decree, because so much of it is just open and vague, and it doesn't actually capture what a community organization kind of does. And so I'm just like very, like, I just try to understand more of like where some of the thought processes was in coming up with this.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that's the thing. This is a outline, so it's up to us to create what we want to see in this going forward. So with like every for every piece of feedback that you just gave, I would just say like go over like each section and like you strengthen the piece that you feel like needs work. So, like I've highlighted certain things last night that I feel like need to be strengthened and added. And once each of us give our feedback and input, then I'll work with the staff to take all of the feedback, all of the information that you send in to like strengthen this document and make it a true voice of what we want to do and how we want to serve the community.
Yes, that makes sense. I'm just wondering, like, how do you want that feedback given as far as, because, like, if some of it is not just actual, like, just commenting, but it's actually going and, like, putting in actual content because that makes sense.
Yes.
And I don't know, I don't want to rewrite someone else's words or anything like that. Like, I don't want to overstep, but it's like some of the stuff just doesn't make any sense, to be quite honest. So I am trying to understand of like, how do we, like, is this like almost like a shared document where we all can just go in and like write stuff and edit it? Or is it a form you want us to fill out? Is it stuff that needs to be vetted first? Like, how do you want that captured?
No, I want you to go through it and rip it apart and add what you want to add. And if it's rewriting someone's work, then so be it. I want you to just like strengthen this to your best ability and send it in. And we'll use all of the feedback from each person to strengthen this document and to make it like just have feedback from all of us, and it'll be an ongoing process. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah. So the framework. So our deadline for this is the end of the fourth quarter to kind of strengthen this, but it says outreach committee manages the plan, updates the plan, and monitors the progress of the plan is ongoing. So we're going to continually be tweaking this and strengthening this and adding to this. So this is a, almost like a living document. It's going to keep going, and we're going to have to change it and tweak it and make it better as we gather information and as we find out things and as we try different things. So yeah, I mean,
so what is the actual concrete plan that we would work? Because we need something, I guess, just to like solidify us to start. So I guess that's my question. Is like, I get that this can be the ongoing changing documents that we have to the end of the fourth quarter. But what is the plan that we're using right now to start doing work that is actually like a solid plan?
Okay, so in this outreach plan, there's awareness and education. That is great. I think we need that. So how do we strengthen that section in this document? So maybe if you see the partnership section, maybe there's something in there that's missing that you can add to that of how we can work more closely. Maybe there's partners and ideas of partners that aren't listed.
But that's what I'm saying. So I'm trying to understand, like, how do we even get to, like, these are the 4 things that we need? Like, when did our committee, I guess, even decide, right, that we're going to do awareness, education, engagement, and what that means and what that looks like? Because this is a plan back at us. We're looking at it to make it better, but what if there's things in there that that we don't need to do? Like, we have a marketing section. We don't need to do marketing. So, like, that's what I'm trying to understand of, like, where do we go in to change it so that then we can, like, vote on it and agree, oh, this is a plan that we're going to use moving forward.
Okay, so what I think we should do is you go in, and let's just say if you don't believe that marketing is necessary, you don't want marketing, the plan that you send in might not have that, and maybe you could share why you decided to take that out. Like, I highlighted things I wanted to take out. I mean, I bolded things I wanted to take out, and I put I need answers on this, or I have a question about this. Things that I wanted to add, I added and then highlighted those things in yellow so that when I present this document to our staff, we could, I could give the explanation of why I wanted this added or why I wanted to take this away or why I needed further clarification on this. So we're going to be working with the staff to add all of our input and create this document. So this document is not, this is just a draft, a very rough draft. We have to create the document. So it's not, we have to create the plan that we want. So if there's something that you think should be in the plan and it's not on here, you can add it. If there's something on here you don't like, on the version you could take it away and then discuss with us why you don't think it's something we should work on or focus on.
No, I get that. I'm just trying to understand, like, when do we do that process, right? Like, I go in, I make the changes like you say. When do we as a committee come back and then vote on the final copy with all of our edits, suggestions, removals?
Yeah, so I would say during the week, I'll be working with the staff. We could reach out to you, or you could come in and work with the staff on your edits, how you see fit. And then once we create that, then we, at maybe one of our meetings, we'll, as a committee, decide when we're going to do that.
Okay, because we still have to vote on the plan once we make all our edits, right? We have to still bring it back to everybody, and then everybody has to vote on it, even the full commission.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I'm just trying to understand the process.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to say anything about it? No. Hey, did you have anything? Okay. All right, so we are going to move forward. I don't have anything for police recruitment and outreach. Does anybody have anything for that?
No, I wanted to, can I ask Jason something?
Sure.
Jason, did you have an update from the city regarding the procurement conversation we had relating to the survey, hiring someone?
The procurement conversations.
Refresh my memory.
Basically, like, any word on how to, if we were to, like, bring someone on board to help us with the survey, what they said, like, any parameters they provided on what we were allowed to do.
So I can give you the document that I have that describes the bidding stuff. That's what they're telling us to do. So unless there's a specific entity, right? So if you're talking about a specific entity that may have, like you had mentioned, working with the college. Mm-hmm. So that's the part where we need a firm answer. So if I have an email requesting what that entity's agreement might be, then I can ask the question. So we should sidebar on that again.
Okay.
Because I might have missed the mark on what you're trying to get to, other than the broad bid process.
Okay.
Right? So sidebar with me because I generally remember.
Okay.
Okay, so since, if no one had,
This is really nothing, sorry to the chair, this is really nothing, Lieutenant Smith is unavailable right now, I think he's in Vegas or something, wherever he is. So I haven't been able to contact, him about what we were planning on doing. And I still haven't been able, gosh, I forgot his name, Fourth District. You gave me his name. He still hasn't contacted me, so
okay,
I'll have to go up there one day.
okay,
To the chair, I do have an update for you. You were CC'd on an email to Director Howard asking who the current recruitment team is, so that members of this committee can talk, and they did respond. So you have the contact information in your inbox from Director Howard with the police officers who are working on recruitment, so that you can consider that in your planning if you want to help with recruitment through this committee in any way, right?
okay, I'll move forward on that.
So the next step would be to reach out to the individuals working on recruitment directly and ask them whatever questions you want, or invite them here to talk about their recruitment efforts and see how you can help in your outreach plan achieve recruitment goals if that's what you chose to do.
Thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move forward to new business. We did complete our CPC Outreach Committee framework, so our ED, Jason Goodrick, is going to present that, and we can make any adjustments we need to make in real time as he goes over that.
Sorry, the moment of silence. The bulb was coming back online because my mic is. All right. Can everyone at the table read that?
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to the idea of the each committee submitting a work plan for the next roughly 12 to 18 months. This is what was sent out to all committee members by the chair. And I know there was some feedback. So if you've watched the other groups, we've gone through this process of tweaking it one last time. The goal is to have a document out that shows all the committee's work by the end of the week for the public to provide some feedback, and we can make final changes. And then hopefully by September's meeting of the full commission, we'll be able to vote our framework into existence, and then we'll have a kind of a compass to follow for the next work plan, so that the community knows what we're working, the division knows. It's important so that the court knows what we're working on, working towards our consent decree goals and objectives. So it really helps just people understand what we're doing. And it should limit the amount of things where people are saying you're not doing anything. You say, well, here's our whole plan that, for the next 18 months of what we're doing. So it helps with all those things. So the first one was the survey, and I know there was some feedback from the survey work group. So rather than read everything out loud, you guys have already seen this, so there's been some feedback. If you want to make any changes, I'm here to make those edits. If the goals here seem unclear or you want to tweak the goals, I'm happy to work with you guys to do that right now in real time, so we can move this one forward this evening. So is there any feedback on the community surveys objectives?
I believe that, Alana, do you want to provide your feedback that you emailed?
Yeah, so I would say for the community survey, the two biggest things that I had was that the first objective, the CPC current survey is actually 3 different objectives in one. So I don't know if you want to, how you want to like denote that, or denote it as these are like the overall objective and these are the goals, but those are actually 3 different things that need to be explicitly laid out within their own bullet. And that's that when we talk about the utilization of the survey to inform the work of the commission, I think it should be worded in a way that includes that the results are just a supplement to the work that isn't outlined in consent decree. Because the way it reads is like, oh, we're not going to be doing any of the work until we get the results of the survey back. But we have like work that we're doing now and that we'll continue to do as outlined in 115 and in the consent decree. And so I think that needed to be reworded so that it shows that that is our primary source of our work, so that this is more of a supplement and that this is an extension of our work, because we have been asked, like, between the monitoring team and the consent decree, we have to do community surveys. So I just thought it should be noted in a different, or worded in a different way.
So that's generalized. So do you have a specific word changes that you want to suggest here? So let's take the first one. Survey to assess community perceptions of the Cleveland Division of Police, gauge the prevalence of the community interactions with the police, and understand the nature of those interactions. So there are multiple points that the survey wants to achieve. From the perspective of writing this down, it's broken into 3 pieces. Conduct the survey, then use the data to inform our work, and then produce a report with the survey's findings. So that first one has components to it. I don't disagree. I don't know if they're separate goals. They're just defining the survey. So if we want to break them out into different survey components with different deadlines to them, that's okay. I was just trying to say this is the scope of this survey, and we're going to conduct a survey with this scope. So if we want to break it into multiple objectives, we can. But the objective there was to conduct the survey, and it just kind of talked about the scope a little bit. So
yeah, so I think if you put survey and then maybe put like A, B, and C as 3 different components, and then each of those components are not going to be components that are done simultaneously, but they will be done in succession of one another. And I think that needs to be laid out so the community can understand. Because the way that this reads is just, there's a survey and it sounds like there's these 3 things that's all happening at the same time, and it's not clear. So to make it more clear, maybe saying this is a survey and this is the objective of the survey, it is 1, the goal is we're assessing community perception. Then we're also gauging the prevalence, and we're gauging the efficacy of the consent decree. Those are 3 different things. And then from there, we can make another bullet that says utilizing the survey, which would have a different timeline, having that out, and then a reporting structure. So the way this is all just in this one cell, it's not clear.
So you can't see it, Commissioner Garrett-Ferguson, but what I've done is break it down. The objective of a survey has now an A, B, C, and D component to it. Are you wanting to change So are you saying there'll be separate surveys with different timelines for each of those, or will the survey encompass those 4 components into one thing with the same timeline?
So I don't think that has been decided by the work group nor the full commission, because I know like we even talked about as a full commission, our survey having questions that also are designed to ask specific questions that relate to each committee to influence their work as well. And so I think from this, just giving this overview, this sounds like when you is the way it's split up, or even if it's all together, that these are different surveys. Because that's a very long survey that's going to assess community perceptions, gauge prevalence of community interactions, and then gauge efficacy of a consent decree.
I believe right now we're going to just move forward, assuming that this is just one survey with these different components to it. If things need to change in the future, we will change things as they need to be done if we find that it's a better way to execute the survey. But for right
now, I think just with all due respect, it doesn't make sense. Like, it just doesn't. It actually, the way it's written right now, I'm saying this like as the fact that we have to present this to the full community, the way this is actually written is not clear. So if it's going to be one survey that has to, having all of those things in there, it's going to need separate timelines and an explanation of how you're going to do all of that with one survey, and also understanding the full commission nor the work group have not decided that those are the 4 components.
So to the chair, I added the word survey to possibly include in the objective so that it lends some flexibility to it, if that's a compromise we can make right now. So it doesn't mandate that we include all these things. It just says can possibly include. And, you know, the goal is to have that done before the end of this year, right? So it's Q4 sometime in the next quarter of 2023. So it gives us the survey, what could possibly be part of it, and then a time on it. So I think that's in here now, and it breaks it down to those components that could or could not be included, right? And it is a framework, so we're not committed to doing those things. We're just saying this is what our general objective is. It's okay to change an objective or to, have to narrow the scope of an objective when you realize that it's too broad later. But at least it puts on paper for the community, 1, that you're going to do a survey, and 2, that you're going to have that survey done by the quarter. And
to add to that, I think as you yourself and Commissioner Kennedy move forward with crafting that survey and tweaking and perfecting that survey, we will be able to change this framework to reflect that.
So so this isn't something that we're like stuck to.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I'm like, this isn't something we're stuck to, because I know this is going to be presented to community. That's why I'm like trying to understand.
No, and I apologize. I think you hadn't come on yet when we discussed that both of these documents are ongoing, and we're going to be working and adjusting them as we go.
Okay.
To the chair, I think that just doing a quick think on this, it seems to me that there would be one survey. The questions would be designed in such a way that this data can be extrapolated from the responses, whether you are using, whether there are questions that will assess the community's perception of the Cleveland Division of Police, whether the questions can gauge the prevalence of community interaction. So I think the key to this, when you start finalizing what those questions will be whether those questions can elicit the responses that you need that will address each of these 4 areas. I don't see it as 4 different surveys necessarily, but looking at one survey that is designed to address these 4 issues, and then you take that data and extrapolate it in such a way that it will respond to each of these 4 areas. I think that's kind of what we were talking about early on in terms of the design of the survey. rather than 4 different surveys, because that 4 different surveys would almost mean you need to go back out 4 times, or you need to identify 4 different demographics that would be responding to these questions. I mean, that was my understanding from the earlier conversation.
And I also want to just say, feel free to edit this document as you like on your own, and then like send it in with those edits, and we can have discussions on things, you know, that you would like to add, even if something else out. Let's say if we leave the meeting and there's more things that, you know, you don't think quite fit or don't work, just make those edits, send the edits in, and we could discuss making those changes.
Okay, is there any other questions about this? Again, we can, and tying it to the consent decree, so that I heard that point raised, we can add a 4th result, and that is, let's see here.
Well, no, I would say under where it says utilize survey to inform the work, that could be reworded to say utilize survey to supplement the work of the commission. That's not already a part of the consent decree. Like it's to supplement the work.
Do we have any other changes we'd like to make to this first?
Maybe we can move on to the next.
Okay. So the next one is the let's go down. It's titled Marketing and Outreach Plan. So I understand some things have been raised about whether we believe marketing is something that the CPC should do or not. So we've always done marketing in the sense of people. What that means to this office is people recognize patterns in what we do and present. So that means our reports look the same. We kind of have the same logo. We use a color scheme, right? So if you see something that has recognizable things on it, you say that's probably from the commission, right? Because our stuff looks uniform and we do have an identity. So that's what it means. And then teaching people what your identity is the marketing component that we've always used, right? So there is a brand to us, and it's already established. Like we have our social media presence, and you can see how our things look. Can we improve it? Absolutely. But it should be part of this outreach plan. If we wanted to make it a separate plan, we could, but I don't think we're that large of an organization because our outreach and our marketing is the same 2 people right now, or 3 people plus, the commission. So it is something that we've always thought of as one umbrella. So, and then again, this is just a very rough draft. So what you're creating in conjunction with staff is the plan for engagement. So to Commissioner Kennedy's point, it can be as detailed as saying, a calendar saying this week is where things will be, or it can be broader and just saying our goals are, to hit X number of events in a month, right? And then because things change and we don't know all the events, we can at least have some metrics to follow. So that's what this is designed to elicit is the way that I see it is you guys are going to set the basic plan and strategy that staff in combination with commissioners are going to carry out, right? So we will always be improving upon it and learning from it and growing. And it typically is in a 1-year cycle, but we can make it longer, but it will help guide how we deploy our limited resources. And that's another reason why we have to do it. We are limited. We're 13 commissioners and maybe we're 5 staff by December. So, that is not a lot for a city this size. So we have to really think out how we're going to deploy our outreach efforts over time. And our plan also has to be reasonable. So that's why this is so important to have this discussion. But the goal is to just have that strategy in place by the end of the year, so that next year we go in with a plan of who we want to hit, how we're going to hit them, what we're going to do, and follow it. Any questions on that?
So I think when you say marketing, I think language is really important in how we use it, especially moving forward as the school commission and doing community work. And I think marketing isn't maybe the best word to use to capture the goal of this. I think there's a more community-minded word and language that we can use outside of marketing, because I think that kind of raises red flags and raises concerns around things of like money and those different things. I think it's fine for us to have a consistent brand that is throughout, but part of also having the brand is as we continue to do the work, as we show up, how we communicate, all of those things go into the brand of the organization. I think that is just can be woven into the full community plan. Instead of just saying, oh, this is a marketing thing, because it's not really what we're doing. Even when we talk about like social media, those types of things, it's not really around marketing for advertising of a business, but more so through using it as a communication tool to engage community. So I think it's just being mindful of how we're describing and talking about these things as a way of it being inclusive, and not putting it in such stark different buckets when we're discussing it. And so language, I think, is going to be very important moving forward. Because while, yes, it's great, those are things that we've done in the past, I think we're a new commission, so we have to also think innovatively and boldly and differently about things. We don't have to do things exactly the same way that we've done it for 7 years, because a lot of stuff was ineffective. And so I think in moving forward, and this might just be a greater conversation, thinking about how are we describing the work that we're doing, and are we using the correct language? And so I would change that word, and wouldn't use the word of brand, but more so like as a community and outreach plan. And in that, actually describing those things that you're talking about, describing having a consistent branding throughout published communication and published documents, but also having an actual social media presence that goes beyond just posting on 2 or 3 outlets, but actually using those social media tools as a way to organize and actually engage the community. None of those things are listed in this plan. And so it's like just the way this is. And what this plan also shows is that there's a notion to want to educate other people, but there's nothing in this plan that talks about listening towards or about it being a two-way, a conversational relationship between communities. This isn't a relationship-minded document, and I think that's the biggest pushback that I have.
I'm sorry, Alana. I'm sorry to stop you, but is it okay? I just want to ask you, could you give me the language that you would like to see? So instead of using marketing, what word would you like to use?
So the word that I think would be better to use would be communication and outreach plan.
Okay.
No, wait a minute.
Well, what do you think? What do you think?
To the chair, we're all going to edit this document ourselves and submit it, right?
Yes.
We don't need to change it right now, because I believe in the word marketing for us, because a lot of people don't even know who we are and what we do, what we stand for, and nothing like that. So yeah, we are kind of advertising. It ain't got nothing to do with money. But it's letting people always ask me, congratulate me on being a commissioner, and then say, what do you do? What do y'all do? So we need a marketing plan.
Well,
But I'm just saying, for right now, it's not a time for debate on whether to use that word or not. We're all going to do our edits on this and submit it, and then have our debates discussions
and
later.
I do hear both of you guys. So how about this? And let me know if this works for you. For each document that was sent out that you guys have that we're reviewing today, if there are any significant changes that you would like to make them in those documents and have them submitted to the outreach, to me by.
So to the chair, with this framework, this is just saying generally what the project is. So
Right.
the name of the plan, you can change that name of your plan when you
Right.
create the plan, right?
Exactly.
So for just in here, it's just a space holder that says, we're working on this plan. So, admittedly, I'm a little dated. So I've heard marketing my whole life as what it is, but I know there's rebranding of everything these days. So, but there's offices called marketing and communications. There's the strategic communications, there's 100 ways you can brand it, right? But the idea that we're trying to achieve is what we will get to when you create the plan. So all right now we're doing is having a placeholder here, what you want to call the project. So
right, and so yeah, in my edits, I've already came up with another name for it that I would present to you guys when that time comes. But what I would ask is by August 28th, just please send whatever edits, changes, additions, subtractions, whatever you want seen in these documents. Please send them to myself and CC Jason, so that way we can start the discussions on what we want to implement from the feedback you guys give.
And to the chair, we need to finish this tonight with all respect,
But
so
it could be tweaked.
this yes, it can be tweaked, but this is just this is just the project name, right? So I deleted marketing and it's the outreach plan again, and
Right.
that's fine.
Well, I'm not
to
speaking,
move forward.
with all due respect, Jason, I'm not speaking to just that one
Right.
word, because I'm just saying in general, any things that needs to be changed, just send those edits in, so that way we won't have to go through the details of it tonight right now.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I'm confused because I'm hearing two different things, Sharena. So I'm hearing you say we don't do it tonight, send it in, but then I'm hearing Jason say we do need to have this document finished tonight. So what is the actual, what's the actual thing that needs to be done?
For clarification, this is just saying what projects we're working on in the next 12 months, right? So we know we're creating a document that has to do with all of those things we've discussed. So you can have the debate about what to call the document when you're creating the document, just to move forward with, for the purposes of getting a framework out to the public. What we've been advocating for is to at least get this plan, this general, we're working on the survey, we're working on creating a plan, and there's one other objective in this. They're just naming the project, so we can name the plan at a later date. How you define the things in the plan, branding, marketing, communications, strategic communications, you can discuss that in the group that is creating the plan. But for the purposes of this, all we're saying is we're creating a plan, right? So we just need to name the project, so we can call it, whatever we need to, but I don't think we need to spend a lot of time debating the project name. The more important part is the plan itself, right? So
what are we, so do we want to get feedback tonight for this, or is this going to be presented to the community as is? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So we will, after tonight, this will go into a master document, and the plan is to have that out to the community by this weekend, right? So if you want to make a last minute change on this, if you guys want to come to the agreement of this project name, we can do that,
But with that being said, this can be changed. So that could be sent out, but this can also be changed as we move forward. And
the final document will be submitted to the commission for approval in September, right? But again, it's a framework. So what we mean by changing it is, if a plan had a bad name, yes, we can change the name of that. If a project had a bad name, we can change the name of the project anytime, sure. But that may also cause confusion if you do that. So you can just keep your project name simple. The project name is just a project name. It has nothing to do with the work.
So I guess that's good, because I thought we were going through this line by line, because I think there's way more concerns with this overall document. This document just isn't sufficient in and of itself. And so that's what I'm trying to understand if we can make changes to it and send it back, and Sharena said, have it done by the 28th and have that back to you, but this is going already out this week.
So I want to say, if you have any changes that don't really need a lot of discussion, that you don't have to spend a lot of time, you just say, hey, can you change 3? Can you, can you, can you change, can you add this to it, add that to it, without a lot of debate or discussion or anything, because we need to move along in the meeting. But if there's like
I
further,
get that. So from looking at it, it needs to be checked. Like, it needs a thorough redoing. Like, this is not a sufficient document at all. And so that's what I'm trying to understand. When is there the right time? If it's not tonight, that's fine. When is that time? Because you said we could do that, send it to you by the 28th, but Jason is saying it needs to be done tonight because he has to get this out by next week.
were you not able to access this document in the email I sent? Because I think this one was okay. It was just that other one.
No. I think both. Like, my comments were about both. About how both of the documents were just not sufficient documents, and so that's where I'm asking where to provide that and when in a timely manner, because I know you said the 28th, but he's saying that this framework has to at least go out, and it's not just changing names, actually changing objectives and goals to things that actually make sense.
What objectives and goals would you like to change? No, I'm just curious. What objectives and goals?
So, like I said, I think that there needs to be more conversation, right? Something needs to be in here that says that it's not just about educating community, but that we are also building relationships with community, that we're creating these other opportunities. None of those things are mentioned. There's only 2 objectives under the outreach plan that don't capture half of what we are actually mandated to do. And then when we go into the CDP community engagement and community confidence, the way that this is laid out, it looks like it's conflating the CPOC work and the community engagement work that the police has to do, the CPOC work we have to do, all into one, and nothing is actually separated out to actually create and say, these are our objectives and this is how this works. So that's why I'm asking. I don't mind going in and doing what you asked, but I want to make sure, when will that need to be given to you, since we don't have the time to do it tonight, so that the document that goes out before people that is public facing is actually a sufficient document. Because this is not it. It's just not.
Okay, to the chair, it sounds like there's a dispute on whether you want to move forward with this or not. Other committees have completed this work without this level of internal dispute over what their documents should be. So, when you provide it, we can add it. But the other committees are ready to move forward with community feedback on the cycle. We're already weeks behind since I first presented this. And this was the last committee to have a chair. So I understand that it could take a moment to process that through a committee. So at this point, I don't think it's fair to the other committees to hold up the movement of the whole framework if we're in dispute that this somehow is not meeting the goals of this group.
And I don't see that it's not clear. It's clear to me what each measure, go ahead, Jen.
To the chair. I think what the intent was to be able to get a framework from each of the committees, and that what the executive director would do would be to bring all of these frameworks together, knowing that there would be some changes probably, that they will continue to be tweaked, but we wanted to at least get them all together, put them on our organization's web page, because not only the commissioners may change some of the language, the public may change some of the language. The public will see this and say, this marketing piece may be better named something else. But it's being put out there for input from everybody. Other commissioners can look at it, the public can look at it, and hopefully by September, when all the frameworks come back to the full commission, they'll come back ready to be finalized, and I'm putting finalized in quotation marks, because it will continue to be tweaked throughout. As you work to implement it, you may then decide, there need to be an additional change here or some additional language. So I think what we would want to do at this point is to encourage all of our commissioners to look at this framework that that the executive director would be presenting, and then give your feedback. So this gives you a chance, Commissioner, to come up with what you think would be more appropriate language in order to make this document more sufficient, but I think there's enough here to begin the work. And that's what we need to do. We need to begin the work because we're already behind. And by the time we come to the next consent decree meeting, we need to be able to show that we have plans in place to move each of these police committees that have been designated. So that's why that's not an urgency, but that's why we need to be able to move this forward. Just be aware that we can change this at any time. There's nothing to say that this is cast in stone, that we're wedded to the language, but at least the language, I love the fact that you can see other options to this language, because that's what we want to see. We want others to see that we can change and improve it somehow, but we got to get started some way. So don't feel that this is cast in stone. Don't feel like it has to be this way. Just begin to think about how can we make it a stronger document in terms of the language we use, and especially language that the community, can relate to in some way. So I think that's the idea. From the co-chair's position, working with the executive director, we need to move this, but just be aware it's moving forward with the intent to improve it and to make it better.
Correct. Thank you, Co-Chair Ridgway, for finding words that I missed. I think many people have said it before. You can't let perfect be the enemy of good and forward progress. So it's not perfect yet. It can be added to, but the goal is to have something that the committee agrees on to just put the first foot out there this week, right? So put something good out with the intent of improving upon it in the coming weeks as we get public feedback. The goal is 2 weeks of public feedback. Then you can discuss it again or quickly improve it or choose to keep it as it is. And then it goes to the commission as one final document in September.
So I guess I'm pushing back because it's like, there's nothing in here. So that's why I'm just very confused with we're putting something out there to begin work that is so vague that how do you begin work if it's not even meeting the bare minimum expectation of the consent decree? So I guess that's why I'm pushing back. So there's nothing, a framework should have data. A framework should have actual SMART goals that are listed. There's not really goals. There's an objective that says outreach committee manages the plan and updates the plan, monitor the plan and progress of the plan's goals. That doesn't mean anything. There's no substance there. And so that's where I'm trying to understand I don't get that we're just putting something out there for everyone to just rip to shreds and say, do the work, because this doesn't designate work.
Well, Alana, I'm sorry. I believe it, as I stated earlier and Chair Ridgway just stated, you have the opportunity to make those changes before this is final. This is a draft that hasn't been finalized yet. So can you make I think I
said that I'll make the changes. What I'm asking is, I was asking about the timeline of what happened. So I can send over, because you said the 28th.
Yes.
And the executive director, Jason, said this weekend. So I'm trying to get clarity around the date of when do you want the changes made.
Go with the 28th. I would say go with the 28th. Do you? What date is?
It's
fine. What date is the?
Whatever this.
What day did you want to put it out?
We want to put it out on Friday.
Okay.
So
would you be able to submit those changes by Friday, or do you need till Monday?
I can submit them by Friday.
Okay. So send it in by Friday. Any other commissioner, if you need to the 28th, that's
yeah.
good.
But see the problem that we have is if there's not, every other committee has had consensus to let their draft go forward. So that would require that just because someone puts forward changes does not mean that there's a consensus in the committee that they're in agreement with the wording or the changes.
Right.
So you'll have to have a system for you guys to process feedback, right? Because the intent was to process it. For instance, with accountability, or I'm sorry, with policy committee. I think some of the community members were here. We went through the document. It was processed. It was discussed. There were some changes to agree to. We're going to make those changes, and then it's going forward, right? So you don't have to revisit that because the changes were all agreed during that discussion. So there was not just abstract concerns about it, but people were like, hey, I want to make this specific change right now, and that's how it was done.
Right.
So
And that's the problem.
so you guys have it's up to you how you want to proceed, but the goal is so that the other committees can move forward to have that out by Friday and get some feedback.
I mean, I would be open to on Friday coming here so that, once it's submitted, reaching out to you guys to see if you agree with the changes. If you agree with the change, I could reach out individually. If you agree with the changes, then we can make them. If not, it will go forward how it is. Okay.
That's fine.
To the chair, even if I didn't agree with the changes, it doesn't matter. We can put it out there because it's gonna get changed
Yeah.
as we go forward anyway.
Yeah.
This is just framework.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm good with that. That's it.
Okay, so I do also under new business want to suggest creating a framework advancement team or work group to just discuss these different issues, have discussions around how to support like maybe the annual survey work group, like the work group related to that, discuss our purpose and our overall goals, discuss how we could push each item in the framework forward. I myself wanted to serve on that work group, and is there anyone else that would like to potentially serve on a framework advancement work group?
I would.
Okay.
Oh, I would, sure. I don't know if that matters right now. But
Oh, okay. So we have a community member that would like to serve on that work group.
I want to be on the other one too.
Okay. Did you hear that, Cait?
Oh, the survey? Mm-hmm. That'd be great.
Okay, so we do have a lot more time left. I was thinking it would be a great time to open up another public comment section, since the last public comment time, no one had anything to say. We do have time. So I am going to open public comment now, if anyone would like to say anything.
The first part I would like to mention is the survey itself. I have been answering the survey continuously, and the survey itself is not a bad design if you look at the administrative point of view. If you want to collect a specific kind of data, yes, that survey will do. But the problem is that survey is totally not friendly to the community member to answer it. So from my experience, I actually recommend this survey actually should be two different surveys. The current survey, you have a mixture of questions. Don't worry about the demographic, that type of thing. I'm not talking about that. The design of the survey is to collect information, yes, but because it's from an administrative point of view, based on the consent decree. For example, they have a question, go with excessive force, the search and seizure, that type of thing. But if you want that kind of thing, and you're also mixing the question with the frequency, how many times of the year you have been getting the encounter with the police only on this, then only on that? This is not a reality. So it's very hard for community member actually to answer it. Plus, the duration is, if you do that annually, if some people maybe only have one or two incidents and they can remember that well. Some people cannot even remember that very well. And some of the people, when they have multiple incidents, things may get mixed up. So I think we should have two kinds of surveys, and also
If you'd like
to
to make a
conduct
please
in
hang up
two
and
kinds
try
of
again.
frequencies.
If you need,
If we just want to know, have you had multiple encounters a year? Or you want to know a specific incident, which both kind, right now we have that in the current survey. If we separate that and use a different frequency, that will be easier for community members to answer accurately. The other thing is, back in 2015, you guys all have heard Rosie Pelfit mentioned they did that in group to go into shelter, for example. This is just an example. You can go into a group home, a shelter, that kind of a setting to actually talk instead of giving them the survey on paper or ask them to answer that online. Because when you talk, you actually bring the memories back for the people to talk about these things, and actually you write down their answers. It's more accurate because you can actually ask them questions. For example, when they mention something, you can help them to separate two incidents, or to ask them as, oh, in one incident you have multiple situations. These things, it's easier to get the truth out of their experience better, because lots of people, when they see so many questions in the survey, they will not really answer them. For some people, probably it have to take 1 hour or 2 hours for them to answer correctly, thoroughly, but people don't have that time, that kind of time. So this is one issue. The other thing is, since the survey targets the 4 areas, lots of things are not, the true situations are not in any of these. If you are a sex worker right now, you feel that you are pressured, threatened, or you are even forced to have a sex activity with a police officer. That doesn't go under any of those categories. Is that excessive force? Is that search or seizures? No. Now, you are in a convenience store. I used that example before. You are there, but this police come to talk to you in a certain way. That is not asked in the survey, but that is a true experience people encountered on a daily basis. Possibly. Even I have told a story that was when COVID-19 pandemic started, when it was during the time we had the stay-at-home order. A person coming back from pharmacy, walking on the street towards back to shelter, she was harassed by the police because there was no place for her to relieve herself. She had to hide herself behind a car to pee. The police circling around this patrol car. They waited for her to do that, then they came with the sirens and everything. This is an incident, but if you look at the survey, the people, they don't know which category that is for them to answer. So I think we do need to use the original survey, but we need to add something to it. We cannot only limit their experience, only focus on excessive force, search and seizure, all those type of things. Lots of the mistreatment or violations are not only from these 4 things. Sure, those are the common results. People will lose life right there at the moment. But the wrong kind of policing is not only on these 4 things. So I wish the commissioner will consider that, especially if you want the true answers from community member completely. You don't want to hearsay, but even sometimes for 1 year for them to remember all different incidents, all the bits of pieces is hard. So I would recommend the general question, like
how many times you encounter a police? That kind of question, yeah, you do that once a year, fine. But if you really want people to answer specific incident they actually had, it's better you make the frequency as maybe quarterly. When people have that memory and you have somebody to talk to them to get it, instead of just, some people can answer survey just on paper on their own. Some people can really get online, but lots of these things, sorry, the people getting impacted by the wrong kind of policing, they cannot answer, they have no way to answer survey truthfully, completely that way. I would recommend the same method Rosie Pelfrey and the other person, they actually did. That is a good thing. If possible, maybe every quarter, we can have a community meeting outside of the regular community meeting, the public meeting, just to let people to talk to the people. I don't know, you may want to get a canvasser or even the commissioners. You guys want to do that yourself. Just doing the same setting, getting the answers from the people filling out the survey or generate a report like that. That would be a better method. It's kind of weird. People may not think that's a cost effect, but if we want to collect true data, this method actually will not cost you much. It will give you a better result. This works for not just policing. Even when we try to do paratransit or public transportation, we want to try to do something among Medicaid or food stamp card for social services. This type of methods in general works better. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kayla Pincus. Okay, so I wrote something earlier today regarding outreach stuff. And so it's a little bit out of context, so I'm going to try to give some context. This is a new commission, and I am sort of trying to operate from a perspective, I think I'm trying to operate from a perspective of balance between kind of who is all involved here, stakeholders. There are other like phrases that could be used to, say to get at that point, but whether you're somebody who's just entering into this sphere for the very first time, or you're the chief of police, right? So we've got lots of different people involved at different stages. So I'm going to read this. It's not short, so I'll try to get through it quickly, but of some of my thoughts regarding outreach, a lot of the stuff that you guys have touched on today. I hope nobody hears it as nails on chalkboard, but these are just like some things I think that even if you don't agree with some of the like points I make or ways that I frame these questions, that it is food for thought that we can kind of use a little bit. And I also wanted to say just background on me very quickly. So I am a community member, but I also, my professional background is as sort of a type of messaging strategist, which has involved two very different forms of work. One in the criminal justice sphere and one as a political pollster for a large firm. I don't do polling work anymore, but that's a big part of what my background is, and my degrees are in public opinion research and social psychology and how to run research experiments kind of to that effect. The criminal justice side of what I refer to as messaging has to do with my work as a sentencing expert and mitigation specialist, which has everything to do with how you tell the stories of people who have committed crimes in order to explain why they are the way they are, to generally speaking get it, from my perspective, to get a lower sentence. So whether that's on death row work that I've done or work with people referred to as child lifers who are sentenced to life in prison as children, that's some of my background. So I kind of have lots of different like elements of stuff going on here. Okay, I'm going to read this now. So the theme is let's not put the cart before the horse. So, okay, in order to know what questions to ask and of whom, we need to know what kind of answers we can feasibly use. In other words, if people want free cheeseburgers, that's not relevant for us to know because we can't act on that information. On top of that, people will have answered a question. They had no clarity on how their answer would be used, which means we failed a critical element of galvanizing engagement. If we don't even know how we'll use their answers, we certainly won't know how we're going to use their answers. We need to spell this information out for ourselves extremely clearly. What information can we acquire from people that will contribute to the achievement of our goals? So in order to develop the plans for the outreach committee, we need to figure out the larger goals of the CPC, which again, I know probably nails on chalkboard, but these are probably questions best posed to each individual commissioner, but we can start with the outreach committee members in theory. And these aren't necessarily questions that I don't have my own opinions to, and that maybe there isn't consensus, maybe there is consensus, but I can say from speaking to individual people, there's a wide range in understanding of every single one of these things. So I write some action steps here. These are to be discussed. Define various stakeholders, players, actors, or users. For example, the CPC, the commissioners, residents, community leaders, police officers, police leadership, city hall, etc. How do we believe and or want these entities to experience the CPC, police, and the policing system, police reform, and community well-being? What is each commissioner's understanding of the role of the CPC? Is it for police reform, community wellness more broadly? If so, specify. Bridge between community and police? If so, specify. A check and a balance on the policing system, the city government, etc. Please be as specific as possible. How do we want community members to interact with the CPC? Can we create a handful of archetypes that most community members will fall into so we can be more practical in our planning for their experience of us and vice versa? This will inform what's called a user journey or a user flow, which has to do with this field called user experience, which I can also help a little bit with. Anyway, okay, what is each commissioner's understanding of their own role within the CPC? This is a big one. Do they represent a sector of the community like an unofficial appointed legislator? Do they see themselves as only representing, do they see themselves as only representing themselves within their specific identity demographic? Do they feel that it is their role to do exactly what the sector they represent wants to the best of their ability, etc.? And then what makes this commission different? And in what ways is it advantaged by consisting of community members rather than subject matter experts? Next, we need to understand what the outreach committee's purpose is. And the action steps I have fall under discussion and research. So the first part of the discussion, what is each outreach committee member's understanding of the role of the outreach committee? And the research element of that would be, did the former CPCs have an outreach committee? It sounds like they did not. What did they do? And then do other CPC-like entities across the country have outreach committees, and what do they do? The more specific we're able to get, the better able we are to accurately state our general principles. And also just to note here, this was kind of in response to that outreach plan that was drafted, which I know is very broad. And then these are what I consider to be later steps that I don't believe we're ready for, which is probably going to be nails on chalkboard to everybody here. So apologies, but here we go. A big portion of all of this seems like it will involve input. In other words, a collection of feedback from the community on something pertaining to policing. What are the insights gained from the former surveys we have done? And action steps here involve, can we break down these long surveys to determine, so you guys have kind of done this, but if there is anything valuable to be gained, for example, into subsections that work group members review, determine specific metrics for analyzing this information, sounds like you've done this already, or reviewing the policy analyst's insights. If so, what did we learn? Does what we learn result in actionable steps? Are they tangible or conceptual? Are they related or unrelated? How do we determine how regularly a collection of feedback is needed? Do we need to do one again right now? Why are we not? Which, of course, it seems like this is an element that feels like a given, but this is the part of me that's feeling like just cart before the horse a little bit. But just due to the prior questions not having, I think, clear answers among all of us, or not all, I'm not one of you guys, but sometime further down the line, we can discuss the different methods of collecting public opinion, including both questionnaires and focus groups. Within that, we can discuss a plan of action and what is feasible with the budget. We need to pay participants for their participation in surveys, even if a firm does the surveying labor pro bono. That's just an ethical thing to do, and that's how surveys generally operate. It's not a free thing. And we're getting into like kind of lab sections here, so I appreciate your patience with me. If at some point we determine the goals to include something pertaining to an exchange of information between the CPC and stakeholders, the use of a community, what I'm calling map, could be helpful to plot out what we actually mean when we refer to the community and to best engage with them once we figure out what our purpose is, et cetera. So action steps kind of fall under 3 categories. One is sort of research and discussion, which is determine what sub-communities make up the city of Cleveland. And then research. So if commissioners feel that they represent a specific demographic, which speaks to an earlier point I was making, or a question that I had, they reach into that sub-community to determine who their sub-community consists of, determine a specific number of community partners who are community leaders and influencers. These people will serve as touch points to the community for the purpose of reaching out with information and collecting information from their sub-community. These are people we could potentially include in a focus group at some point as well. And the last section here is engage, which would be each commissioner establishes a connection with these community partners and discusses with them what the CPC is and its mission, as well as the community partners' vision for policing and CPC outreach to their sub-community. And then I just sort of said things like social media engagement, et cetera, will become much clearer as we figure out the foundation of the work we're doing and why we would use such things. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Out of an uneasiness around not having produced anything tangible yet, we are in a phase of laying the groundwork so we don't end up flailing or wasting resources. Also, if we know exactly how we are using community input in our work, that is our selling point for messaging and marketing of our work, which is to say, your voice literally matters and here's how. That's it. So I know that a lot of those questions, like I said, have answers. So I'm not posing them as if they're rhetorical or they don't have answers. A great deal of the survey is informed by the elements of the consent decree, that sort of thing. But these are things that like I said, have found from talking to a lot of the commissioners that people are not on the same page about, which is to say nothing of community members having absolutely no idea what this commission is. Truly, I mean, just not a clue, to your point from earlier. So with that, I would love to help in whatever way that I can to provide, I don't know, whatever I can help with. If there are elements of what I've said here that seem like a good thing to kind of open up for discussion in the work groups, probably that would be helpful. Yeah, or not, and that's okay too. But I'm here and I would like to help. Okay, that's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do any of the commissioners have anything to add? All right, so we are going to adjourn the outreach committee meeting at 7:49. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I sent you an email. So what we did, honestly, we kind of started the work group yesterday, honestly. So what we did was just kind of went over that outreach plan and just kind of
Is that all?
broke it down and that's where back. So I just emailed you.
Right, are we cut?
Yeah,